Have you ever felt like you just don't fit in, like the world runs on one frequency, and you're tuned into another one entirely? Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive, too deep, or that you think too much. But what if those flaws are actually signs of something extraordinary? Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, believed there's a small group of people who experience life on an entirely different level, a rare type of personality he described as possessing differentiated consciousness. According to Jung, less than 5% of people ever reach this level of psychological development. These rare individuals don't just think differently, they experience reality differently. They see through illusions, feel emotions on a deeper level, and ask questions that shake the foundations of what most people accept as normal. But here's the twist. Jung found that most of these individuals spend their lives thinking something is wrong with them. Society often labels their gifts as problems, not realizing they're signs of psychological evolution. Jung believed these rare souls aren't just unique, they're ahead of their time. They represent the next stage in human consciousness. Think about it. Throughout history, the people who pushed humanity forward were never the ones who fit in. They were the visionaries, the ones who refused to settle for easy answers. If any part of this sounds familiar, you might just be part of what Jung considered the psychological elite. So today, we're diving deep into the 8 definitive signs of Jung's rare personality type. These signs reveal whether you might be one of the few who carry this advanced psychological architecture, what I like to call the next stage of human consciousness. Because here's the truth. You're not too much for the world. The world is often too little for you. Sign 1. You experience emotional depth that feels almost supernatural. Jung discovered that some people don't just feel emotions, they live inside them. He called this phenomenon affect tone complexes, deep emotional experiences that carry layers of symbolic meaning. For you, feelings aren't simple reactions. They're like full symphonies playing in your psyche. You can sense the emotional temperature of a room before anyone speaks. You feel others' pain as if it were your own. And while others might say, "You're too sensitive," Jung would have said, "You're psychologically advanced." This level of emotional awareness isn't instability, it's sophistication. You're not overreacting. You're perceiving. You're tapping into what Jung called the objective psyche, the shared emotional field of humanity that most people can't access. You can walk into a space and feel the undercurrents that everyone else ignores. You notice when people are hiding pain, when words don't match energy, when truth sits just beneath the surface. It's not that you're paranoid, it's that your emotional radar is calibrated to depth, not small talk. But here's the challenge. When you feel this deeply, the world can be overwhelming. You might absorb emotions that aren't yours, carrying other people's pain until you're drained. Jung warned that without boundaries, this emotional intelligence can become emotional exhaustion. The key isn't to shut it off, it's to learn discernment. Your empathy is your gift, but it doesn't mean every storm you sense is yours to calm. Sign 2. You question reality with sacred curiosity. According to Jung, most people live unconsciously. They move through life accepting what society tells them without question. But you were never satisfied with, "That's just how it is." You've always asked why. Why do people choose comfort over truth? Why do we follow systems that stifle creativity? Why do we pretend shallow connections are enough? This relentless curiosity isn't rebellion, it's what Jung called the transcendent function, the drive to see beyond current limitations. You look at the world not as it is, but as it could be. And that's what makes you both inspiring and intimidating. When you ask deep questions, you're not just looking for answers, you're dismantling illusions. For people comfortable in their routines, your curiosity can feel threatening. They might accuse you of overthinking, but in reality, you're one of the few thinking deeply. You're exploring the unknown corners of the mind where new ideas are born. Jung believed that this sacred curiosity is the fuel for human evolution. Without people like you, humanity would never grow. If you've ever been told you think too much, that your questions make people uncomfortable, remember this: your curiosity is sacred. You're not trying to destroy people's beliefs, you're trying to wake up truth. And that takes courage. Sign 3. You've developed conscious independence, Jung once said. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. That's exactly what you've learned to do, not because it was easy, but because life gave you no choice. Somewhere along the way, you realized you couldn't rely on others to define your worth. So you built yourself from the ground up. According to Jung, rare personalities often reach what he called individuated consciousness through hardship. Pain forces them to face who they really are. For you, independence isn't a defense mechanism, it's an accomplishment. You've faced loneliness, judgment, and misunderstanding, yet you've turned all of that into self-mastery. You no longer look to others to tell you who you are. You've stopped chasing validation and started honoring your truth. Jung described this as the process of individuation, the psychological journey toward becoming whole. It's not about ego, it's about integration. It's about owning every part of yourself, including the ones society told you to hide. Your solitude isn't loneliness, it's sanctuary. It's where you remember who you are beneath expectations and noise. Jung believed that true psychological health begins with this kind of self-knowledge. Most people run from it. You, on the other hand, sit in silence and let your truth emerge. That's power. Sign 4. You possess hyper-perceptive awareness. One of Jung's most revolutionary ideas was that intuition is a legitimate psychological function, just as real as thinking or feeling. He described intuition as perception via the unconscious. If that sounds like you, it's because you notice everything, the micro-expressions, the pauses between words, the energy behind someone's tone. You don't just listen, you sense. You can tell when someone's hiding sadness behind a smile. You can feel tension in a room even when no one says a word. Jung would have recognized this as evidence of active imagination, your ability to perceive what others can't articulate. For you, truth isn't always spoken, it's felt. But this gift comes with a warning. Jung cautioned that without boundaries, intuitive people often become unconscious healers, absorbing others' emotions, solving problems that aren't theirs, and burning out in the process. You might find yourself constantly holding space for others, reading their energy, and forgetting to care for your own. Your awareness is a gift, but it's not your job to fix everything you sense. Jung believed that the goal for highly intuitive individuals is not to numb their perception, but to refine it. Learn when to engage and when to withdraw. Your insight is powerful, but it's meant to guide, not to drain you. And that brings us to the deeper layers of Jung's discovery, because emotional depth, curiosity, independence, and perception are just the beginning. There are 4 more traits that define this rare personality type, and by the time we explore them, you'll understand why Jung believed people like you are the future of human consciousness.